Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Our events will begin shortly. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am Martin Choi, your MC for today's Asia-Pacific COP29 Roundtable, hosted by Friends of the Earth Hong Kong and the Financial Services Development Council. Before we begin today's program, let us invite everyone to take a group photo to mark this momentous occasion. Please look in the direction of our cameraman. To begin today's program, may we now invite Professor Anthony Cheung, Supervisory Board Member of the World Benchmarking Alliance and Vice Chairperson of Friends of the Earth Hong Kong, for the opening remarks. Professor Cheung, please.
King, Dean Alfred, distinguished guests, fellow CESCA alumni and friends, a very warm welcome to our Asia-Pacific COP29 Roundtable. I'm Anthony Cheung, Vice Chair of Friends of the Earth Hong Kong, and it's my privilege to serve as part of the Hong Kong delegations to COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. First, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to our supporting organizations, BEC, the Business Environment Council, the Hong Kong Association of Banks, HKAB, the HKGFA, the Hong Kong Green Finance Association, Hong Kong Productivity Council, and also the Trade Development Council, HKTDC. And obviously, SME Sustainability Society, SMESS. Your support and collaboration demonstrate Hong Kong's commitment to climate action. We are also very grateful to our venue sponsor, CityU's Hong Kong Tech 300, which incubate many of the Hong Kong startups on climate and also sustainability solutions. While Baku impressed us with its warmth, hospitality, wealth of history, and some wonderful food, which I put on some weight, COP29 reminded us that we face urgent climate challenges and require unprecedented collaborations. COP29 highlights reminded us that we're not moving fast enough towards our climate objectives, and the window for actions is narrowing. What made this COP particularly significant for Hong Kong was our largest ever delegations. representing a broad spectrum from stakeholders all the way from government, businesses, academic, and civil society organizations. The strong presence reflects Hong Kong's growing importance in climate finance and also our commitment in being part of this global solution. Today's roundtable brings together distinguished speakers who will share their insights from COP29 and explore how Hong Kong can strengthen its position as a green and transition finance hub. The discussions ahead will focus on practical steps and action we can take to enhance regional collaborations, engage stakeholders across generations, and ensure our climate finance initiatives deliver tangible impacts for vulnerable communities. Ladies and gentlemen, let's use this platform to turn COP29's global dialogue into tangible action. I look forward to our engaging discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zheng. Let us now turn to the pre-recorded keynote speech from Mr. Plato Yip, Chairperson of Friends of the Earth Hong Kong.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, thank you for joining us today as we reflect on the outcomes of our recent side event at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. I'm proud to share that our side event, co-hosted by Friends of the Earth Hong Kong and Financial Services Development Council, it was entitled Advancing Transition Finance and Cross-Border Green Financing, Encouraging the Public to Achieve a Net Zero Economy. As an international financial center, Hong Kong plays a vital role in providing global capital toward high-quality environmental projects, actively facilitating the transition to a green economy both regionally and internationally. Our side event attracted a diverse audience, including representatives from UN organizations, government officials from various countries, multinational and bilateral agencies, policy banks, supranational fund representatives, and financial institutions, etc. We had significantly more attendees than last year in Dubai, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Other than speeches made on stage, we have a panel. The panelists on stage represented key stakeholders, including entrepreneurs, banks, standard-setting organizations, and regulators, etc. The results of our panel are very encouraging, and many of the panelists are actually invited to talk about and share more about our experience on site on that day. Immediately after our side event section, multiple speakers were invited to participate in other COP29 sections, and invitations were extended for us to speak in their respective countries' events and UN gathering sections. This side event truly helped to amplify Hong Kong's voice on green finance on the global stage. Our strong financial infrastructure, supportive policies, and talented professionals positioning Hong Kong as a leading green finance center. And I can actually sense that other countries are quite envious of what we have here in Hong Kong. Following our event, we also took the opportunity to conduct a follow-up meeting with Hong Kong Government Bureau's senior officials, where we all agreed to consider organizing more this kind of events in future on global stage to promote Hong Kong's green finance edge. Our ongoing participation in international conferences will allow us to showcase our experience in sustainable finance, influence global policy making, and drive transition toward a carbon neutral economy. And ultimately, we aim to amplify our commitment to a more resilient and greener future for future generations. By promoting transition finance across Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area, we seek unlock innovative solutions and amplify financial support for green economic development on both national and global scales. This concerted effort will bolster our collective capacity to tackle the pressing challenges of global climate change and funding needs. Lastly, we are very grateful for the unwavering support and great partnership from the Financial Services Development Council. And we look forward to our next event together, continuing our vital work in promoting green finance and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yip. May we now invite Dr. King Au, Executive Director of the Financial Services Development Council, to deliver his keynote speech. Dr. Au, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is really a privilege to join you today as we continue building on the dynamic conversations initiated at COP29 in Baku. As Plato mentioned, we had a successful side event on day one of COP29. What I would like to do today is to reflect on some of the insights that we have gathered and to discuss how we can continue driving impactful change in this vital area. At COP29, we will remind that the transition to a net zero economy is not just an environmental imperative, but also an extraordinary economic opportunity. The figures remain stark, yet compelling. Achieving net zero emissions by 2050 will require a cumulative investment of at least $150 trillion globally, according to IEA's estimation, with an annual financing gap of nearly $4 trillion in Asia, which accounts for over half of the global energy consumption. Hence, the region holds immense potential to lead the global shift towards sustainability. While these challenges are sobering, we were encouraged by the outcomes of COP29. Nations came together to advance the transition finance agenda, establishing new quantifiable climate finance goals to support post-2025 climate actions in developing countries. In alignment with this progress, the FSDC has recently released a research report published just last Thursday, focusing on Hong Kong's vital role in financing the transition. As a leading international financial center and a critical bridge between mainland China and the rest of the world, Hong Kong is uniquely positioned to play a pivotal role in this global effort. Our city brings several key strengths to the table. Well, first, Hong Kong's expertise in public-private partnership, PPPs, remains a cornerstone of our approach to transition finance. At COP29, we emphasized how PPPs provide a highly effective framework for aligning public policy objectives with private sector innovation and capital. Through risk sharing, fostering long-term planning, and encouraging collaborations, PPPs enable us to mobilize the resources needed for large-scale sustainable projects. In the context of transition finance, this means funding critical renewable energy infrastructure, promoting a low-carbon transportation system, and accelerating the adoption of green technologies. Second, Hong Kong serves as a vital conduit for global capital, providing a robust foundation for driving green investments. The growing presence of family offices committed to impact investing further enhances our ability to channel funds into sustainable projects. Third, Hong Kong's financial expertise is one of our greatest assets. Our city is home to world-class financial professionals with the skills, experience, and global perspectives needed to develop innovative financial products. This expertise is crucial for structuring complex solutions tailored to the demands of transition finance. It ensures that Hong Kong remains at the forefront of global efforts to mobilize capital for sustainable development. As we move forward, our focus must remain on transforming these discussions into tangible actions. This means developing transparent and interoperable taxonomies to enhance accountability in sustainable finance. It involves strengthening corporate climate governance to ensure that business practices align with low carbon goals. And it requires fostering deeper regional collaboration to bridge the financing gap and accelerate the adoption of green technologies across Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, the urgency of our mission cannot be overstated. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges of our time. but it also offers us a chance to reshape our economies, drive innovation, and build a better future. Hong Kong is ready to lead this charge by leveraging our financial acumen, our strategic location, and our unwavering commitments to sustainability. We are all well positioned to serve as both as a regional leader and a global partner in this transition. Let us seize this opportunity to create a financial ecosystem that not only funds but accelerates the transition to a net zero economy. By fostering innovation, championing collaboration, and maintaining a forward-thinking approach, we can turn the tide on climate change. Together, we can build a prosperous, sustainable future for generations to come. So thank you. I look forward to continuing this important journey with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Au. May we now invite Professor Amos Tai, Associate Professor in the Earth and Environmental Sciences Program of the Faculty of Science, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, to deliver his keynote speech. Professor Tai, please.
Thank you very much for this introduction, and I'm very glad to be here. And I discovered just now that I'm the only speaker who have prepared a PowerPoint presentation. So this is suits my profession as a professor. So I'm very sorry to have to make you, sit through a lecture, but I'll be trying to be vivid and entertaining. All right. So at COP29, I usually think of myself as wearing three different hats. So I'm a scientist myself. I try to look at how food system transformation and sustainable forestry can mitigate climate change. So maybe a lot of people are thinking about, okay, so when we talk about climate transition, right, of climate finance, what are we exactly financing, right? So it could be energy system, it could be, food system. So today, for a couple of slides, I'm just going to use food system transformation as an example, just as an example of what kind of things we can transform or to finance, right? Because this holds really dear to my heart. I'm also an advocate. That's why I'm at FoE, really trying to help governments, businesses, and NGOs to work together to advance climate action. But I also see myself as an educator, really trying to promote public and higher education for sustainable development. So just as an example, food system transformation is something that we really need to transform, really need to be done through financing. Why? Well, indeed, nearly a third of all of the greenhouse gases are actually driven by the global agriculture and food systems, really. So depending on how you count it, about 20% is directly from the farms and livestock production and the land use change, deforestation themselves. But another part is actually coming from the energy. You need the energy to transport the food, to make fertilizer, to basically run the farms and run the livestock facilities. So together, it's about 1/3. Even if we can do energy transition, if we do not touch on the food system, we cannot really do, we really cannot solve the climate crisis or to adapt the world to a future climate. So at COP, a lot of people have been talking about how this COP is a finance COP, right? Because the outcome, I think a lot of us here already know, we successfully triple finance to developing countries using to about $300 billion annually by 2035. But a lot of estimates make it such that indeed about 1.1 trillion is actually needed to actually build sustainable and resilient agro-food systems. Yeah, just to transform the food system, it requires 1.1 trillion. So even this goal, which has to be used for many other purposes, are really falling short of the actual amount that is needed. So, but then I'm still glad that at least some treaty and declaration has been signed to, for instance, to reduce methane from organic waste. I was actually pretty frustrated with the lack of focus of having quantifiable goals regarding transformation of the food system. But at least, declaration has been signed saying, countries are saying, we can come together to reduce food waste, reduce methane from organic waste, so on and so forth. It is a good start, but I am really looking forward to a more quantifiable goals. So in order to really transform the food system, it has to be from production all the way to consumption, right? So on the farms, on the livestock production facilities, so on and so forth, you have to reduce the amount of emission from different sorts of production, from the farms, from fertilizer use, from the livestock waste, so on and so forth. So a lot has to be invested to reduce the emissions from the production side for sure, and finance is definitely needed to do that. On the consumption side, we need mainly two things. We need to transit toward a low-carbon diet, namely more really much reduced meat consumption, more plant-based food are very much needed for the whole food system transformation to occur. But at the same time, food waste reduction as well. This is something that Hong Kong really, really has to do. Food waste, about a third to half of the food is actually wasted. And if we can avoid that part of food waste, that much food waste, we can actually reduce food system emissions by half already. Yeah, not let alone the amount of methane and other gases that are emitted when we put the food waste into the landfill. So, and that, again, this whole process needs to be financed. Not to mention, during the whole sort of food chain, a lot have to be done. It's not only about the farmers, it's not only about the consumers. A lot can be done somewhere in between. The supermarkets, the food supply, like basically the retailers, the wholesalers, and the restaurant chains. All of these industries really control how much food and the options of food that we can have. And if they don't provide us with more low carbon alternatives, it's very hard for consumers to do anything, really. Yeah, even though we can all become vegetarian, but then still, it really rely on the food providers for our city to do something to help us get there. So you can see the whole problem is very complex. So my role at COP during the China forum, during the China Pavilion forum that Plato has just talked about, I was talking about mostly how academia and NGOs can help green finance and how climate transition. So in particular, I was talking about how civil society, that includes NGO, academia, including universities and other educational institutions. A lot of us, some of us here are also from the university or the tertiary education sector. NGOs, of course, a lot of us here are from NGOs, and of course, businesses and government as well. But how does civil society, what are the roles of civil society in helping the whole city to transit towards a low carbon future? So today I'm going to focus on academia, NGO. I only have maybe 3 minutes left. Academia, of course, very important in providing the data, the research, and the innovation, and the tools that are needed for businesses and governments to formulate the right decisions and the right policies, because you need to know the climate-related risk and projections in order to make decisions that are really delivering the outcomes. So we are very important in providing all of these tools and technologies and innovative ideas. Usually we can integrate remote sensing observations through machine learning, for instance. I myself run a lot of climate models. And of course, some colleagues would run experiments. We integrate different methodologies so that we can have a better projections to inform policy making and inform financial decisions. This is one of the key value and core sort of mission of academia in this climate transition project. Some of the example from CUHK, for instance, this business sustainability index is one of such indices that can help business or to assess how business is doing, at least in terms of carbon reduction and going towards carbon neutrality. And again, integrating multiple sources of data. From a more scientific perspective, like what I myself do, we can integrate satellite data, for instance, ground measurements, atmospheric modeling to really identify what businesses, what industries, or what farming operations are not following their commitments, okay? Identifying like the hotspots for, say, methane emissions, CO2 emissions. So such kind of monitoring enabled by technologies are very important to making sure that what you invest in is really delivering what they have promised to. So this is very important to make sure to validate basically the carbon credits, right? Like a lot of people are talking about trading carbon credits, but they need to be validated. How? Of course, by technologies. So, and of course, academia, another key mission is education and public outreach. We are very interested in not only letting students and the public know about different sustainability issues and climate issues, but we want to change their attitudes, their social emotional aspects, and also bringing about behavioral changes as well. Of course, at a university, we can do this through curriculum, classroom, and also incorporating experiential learning or service learning. And at the same time, of course, NGOs together with universities can do a lot in public education along all of these lines. So just final 2 slides, 3 more. Another very important function of civil society is to raise public awareness, of course, through, first of all, consumer activism. If you're talking about food system, well, consumers have to know about their options and their impacts of their everyday food options or their choices, right? So NGOs are for sure very important in teaching or educating the public about the impacts of their everyday actions. So including ethical consumerism, for instance, promoting this, bringing about behavioral shifts are something that is very core to the mission of NGOs. But more related to what we care about today, NGO is not only about the consumers. A lot of it is about the businesses and the investors as well. NGOs can definitely promote private investors and businesses to really engage in environmental, social, and governance investing. And I believe a lot of us here are interested in this aspect. From the perspective of food system transformation, I really think right now the key players in the whole food chain, like restaurants, supermarkets, and food providers, the industries, are really not on board yet. And I feel that NGOs can have a lot to engage the food sectors into making more environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable sort of operations. And of course, NGO promote divestment, shareholder activism, and greening the supply chain as well, something that a lot of us here are doing. So to close, civil society, including academia, NGOs, are really important bridges, translating the latest scientific discoveries and technological innovations into actionable practices for governments, businesses, and also for consumers to really gradually transition toward carbon neutrality. Right, so thank you very much. This is what I want to share today.
Thank you, Professor Tai. We now move on to our panel discussion, From COP29 to Action, Hong Kong's Role in Scaling Up Climate Finance in Asia. Our moderator is Ms. Ophelia Lin, founding president of the SME Sustainability Society and vice chairperson of Friends of the Earth Hong Kong. We now invite our distinguished panelists to join us on stage for a group photo. Dr. Rocky Tung, Director and Head of Policy Research for the Financial Services Development Council. Professor Anthony Cheung, Supervisory Board Member of the World Benchmarking Alliance and Vice Chairperson of Friends of the Earth Hong Kong. Professor Alfred Ho, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences at City University of Hong Kong. Ms. Serena Mack, Executive Director of Sustainable Finance Institutional Banking Group, DBS Hong Kong. And Mr. Alfred Chang, Hong Kong Youth Delegate, Carbon Care InnoLab. Ms. Lin, over to you.
So good afternoon, or distinguished guests, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen. As we gather here today, just a week after returning from COP29 in Baku, I'm struck by both the urgency and opportunity that lies before Hong Kong in advancing climate finance. At the China Pavilion, with Friends of the Earth Hong Kong and the Financial Services Development Council co-host our side event. The message was clear. The financial change sectors must accelerate its responses to climate change, and Hong Kong is uniquely positions to lead this transformation in Asia. COP29 marked a crucial milestone in transition finance. The discussion in Baku emphasized not just what, but the how we can mobilize capital at scale, how we can ensure a just transition, and how financial centers like Hong Kong can serve as catalysts for regional climate action. Today, we have assembled a distinguished panel representing diverse perspectives from banking, academia, policy research, global benchmarking, and youth advocacy. Their combined expertise will help us understand how we can translate COP29's ambitions, commitment into practical actions here in Hong Kong. Before we dive into specific topics, I'd like each of our panelists to briefly introduce yourself and share your key takeaway from COP29 in Baku, particularly regarding climate finance developments. May I start from Anthony? Professor Anthony Cheung. Yeah. Our vice chairperson in Friends of the Earth.
And in the panel, I had actually to slightly switch my hats.
Okay. You can have 2 or 3 hats at the same time, like Amos.
Indeed. So I also have the honor to serve as a supervisory board member on the World Benchmarking Alliance, WBA, which provides benchmarking on Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So I think at COP29, one of the key observations, Ophelia, if I may, is that there is a lot of active participations, like globally, including international organizations. WBA actually hosted 3 events, including a press conference focusing on energy and climate benchmarks. So there are also discussions in, for example, the Brazil Pavilion and also on Just Transition Pavilion on how these benchmarks would be able to help investors, financiers to have a standardized way in assessing corporate performance in advancing sustainable development goals.
Wow. Thanks, Anthony. And may I invite Sharina?
Most of us here also wear more than one hat. I'm no different. I'm also the board member on Friends of the Earth Hong Kong, so I think that was a great opportunity for me to be able to be representing an NGO in Hong Kong for 2 consecutive years to go and at least experience what it's like for climate negotiations and bring some of the learnings back. So of course wearing the NGO hat, I think one very big observation that I personally have is the fact that climate finance is a little bit of a wealth redistribution, if you know what I mean. So actually, if you think about people who are losing their jobs, or where the investments will change from one type of energy generation to another. So it in fact is some of the wealth will be redistributed between different provinces, different countries even. So I think I can appreciate why climate finance has evolved into such a big topic. So that's point 1. Now, point 2, back to my banking hat, right? If you put in my banking hat, then the other part that we realize is that one thing that we'll talk about a bit later is that Dr. Kinga was talking about public-private partnership. So the money needs to come from different places, right? Government, the private sector, and some other investors. Now, where does banks sit in? Where do we come in? Of course, we can be the structure. We can, somehow find a way to, make sure the risk goes to different places, etc. But fundamentally, I think the market has to accept the development of such products, and the regulation and the legal framework has to catch up, so that we'll be able to, promote these products in Hong Kong. And I think Hong Kong, being an international financial center, places itself in a very, very good position to actually do that. So I'll just stop here, and I think we'll come back to a couple of these later.
Can I invite Professor Alfred?
So I'm coming from the public policy perspective, and also, by the way, thank you, Friends of Earth, to organize this. inviting me to come here. So at COP29, City University actually organized some workshops and seminars with the UN Chair in Development. And so we also engage a lot of international organizations and different speakers from different sectors. One thing that I pick up very strongly is that governments have no money. Okay? Number one. Number two, that means the banking sector, the private sector really, really have to play a strong role. Number three, but they also will say, we also need to make money. So that means I think it's very important for us to have cross-sectoral partnership to work together. That means my last point is we need a lot more paradigm shift and innovation. Market innovation, paradigm shift in how we think about consumption, how we think about our daily lifestyle, and also technological innovation, so that all this could work together.
Yeah, thank you, Alfred. Another Alfred here, the youngest one, maybe, in the panel.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you very much for the invitation, and nice to be on the panel with all of you. I am representing Carbon Care InnoLab as a youth delegate to travel to COP. Carbon Care InnoLab is a local NGO that is really focused on youth and climate advocacy. And I think what I wanted to share as a youth participant really at COP is that when people think about COP, it will be like countries negotiating with each other, right? So what is the role of youth, right? Is there actually an official role? Turns out there is. Right? So Yango, for example, is the official children and youth constituency under UNFCCC. So there is an official constituency through which young people and children are able to have their voice, whether through interventions, whether through ensuring the environmental and social safeguards, whether through looking at the text, setting up bilateral meetings. So this is just some examples of what we did actually on the ground with the Yango team. So that is one of the focus that I wanted to bring out, and I'm happy to talk more later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alfred. So last but not least, you're Rocky, yeah.
Yes, so thank you very much for having us. And my name is Rocky Tone. I'm the Director and Head of Policy Research for the Financial Service Development Council. I don't wear multiple hats for this specific instance. I just have one, and that is as an employee of the FSDC. Together with our Vice Chairman, Daniel Fong, my Executive Director, Dr. King Au, and myself, the three of us really had the purpose of bringing in the perspective of the Hong Kong SAR government and the wider financial services community to COP, and more particularly at the China Pavilion. Now, what we did, prior to that, was really to coordinate with our friends at the Friends of the Earth, particularly Dr. Jeffrey Hong, who actually was the person in charge of leading the liaison with our counterparts on the mainland. So thank you very much, Jeffrey. For the FSDC, the mission was very clear, and that is to highlight the fact that Hong Kong has quite a comprehensive ecosystem, and that is to really contribute to the better good, not only for the country, not only for our city, but also for the rest of the world. And with our financial service expertise, I guess that's really the whole point of us being there. And so, I'll stop here first and talk more later.
Yeah. So thank you, Rocky. So these panels are very outstanding, I tell you, because they are from different sectors and they're very outstanding leaders. So I hope today you will have a lot of takeaways. So may I start from Dr. Rocky Toned? The first questions. Based on the discussions and negotiations at COP29, what emergent trend in climate finance should Hong Kong's financial sector prepare for?
Right, so thank you very much. I guess, there are two very relevant points that we wish to highlight, and that is not only about public-private partnership, but also about how we should move on from talking about green and sustainable finance to more specifically on transition finance with regards to not only our country, mainland China, or China in general, but also the other emerging markets. So transition finance is point number one. And we also highlight the fact that carbon market is also a means to achieve that goal. And that is also some of the components that we highlighted in our discussion. Those two papers, those two areas, like were also highlighted in, a paper that we launched last week, and also one that we will be launching next week. So watch out for it if you aren't already invited to that webinar. Now, why is transition finance important? It's roughly because of the fact that there are a lot of emerging markets out there. Like if we're only putting resources and allocating financial means to very green and sustainable projects, it is very difficult for those emerging markets to achieve the goal of obtaining such resources and removing their focus on high energy intensive sectors. Now, like for instance, in the steel making sector alone, like it is using a lot of electricity. It's also requiring a lot of coal fire, like driven power. And then like there's a lot of iron ore mining, etc. So the repercussions really just brings you to the equation of, hey, do we really are we really at the equilibrium? Are we really there to just drive out the steel making in general, or can we make it more sustainable, part and partial? So that is something that we wish to highlight in terms of transition finance. Now, like our event was on the 11th of November, and on that day is the first day. We also saw the COP announcing the fact that they are adopting, 6.2 and 6.4, and then, like there will be negotiations and whatnot during the rest of the COP. Now, like that is very important because, like here in Hong Kong, we try to make the carbon market, the voluntary carbon market, more effective to bring effectively the carbon credits of in compliance with various standards to Hong Kong and make sure that this is a commonplace for us to trade that. Now, with UN doing it, like I think many of us would be happy for the fact that there's a globally agreeable standard that we can look at. Now, can we really do it? And this is something to
still a lot of arguments.
We have to. Sit on it for a little bit. So hopefully, our paper that is to be released next week can offer a little bit of such insights.
Yeah, please. Thanks for your sharing. So the next questions I'll go to Serena as a banking expert. What are the key challenges and opportunities for Hong Kong's banking sector in scaling up climate finance and supporting the transition to a low-carbon economy?
I feel very stressed about being called a banking expert because I've seen a lot of banking counterparts here who can actually be more well called banking experts. Okay, now back to climate finance, right? I think one thing that I looked at a lot as compared to last year's COP in Dubai is that there are a lot more discussions around energy transition as a topic. So we all know to decarbonize, you basically like whatever is powering, like this room need to switch. Now, last year there were all some discussions around, like the job around it, etc. But this year is really about the infrastructure around what can be changed. Yes. So it's about the source of energy. Is it wind? Is it solar? Is it nuclear? We went past a booth that was talking about 3x nuclear in by 2050. And then there's also the renewable energy hub, where they spoke about energy transition is not just the production of the energy. It is about the grid, the transmission, cables, the storage, the fact that you need solar power when the sun is down, that kind, right? And those are all money.
New technologies.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually, mind you, it's not new also. It's existing. And a lot of these are already existing technologies.
Need a lot of money.
Yep. And then now the other part comes. How do we do, like such financing? If it's commercialized already, okay, great, right? If it's all commercialized, there's no specific need for banks. Everybody can, like trade it, find in the market, China solar power, very commercialized, all good. Now, what about for those sectors that are, for example, Rocky was talking about steel making, right? Steel or manufacturing, where the technology is not there.
Yeah.
It's going to be there.
Yeah.
Then what do you do in between? That's kind of where I think the the particular unique opportunity comes, and that's where transition finance lies. For high-emitting sectors, where technology is not fully commercialized, where there is a huge social economic impact, where, you know, if you shut something down, there's job implications. One thing that we went past, right, in COP was we went to look at a panel where somebody in Indonesia was saying that, not that I don't want to transition away from coal, but that particular province that I live in, 80% of the people earn their money from anything related to that value chain. Okay, so it's not just the plant. It's people who are transmitting, the transportation, the whole ecosystem. Then the next question this person was asking was like, so if I don't do coal, what else can we do in that province? No answer. So I think for us to really think about where the money goes, I think that's where the gap is. That's one observation. Now the other observation is we need a market agreed of definition of what transition really is. Because of course you know what are the green, you know what are the brown, and then everything lies in between. But you know there are capital needs on specific projects, right? Those we just spoke about, high emitting sectors, not yet commercialized technology, social economic impact. Can the market somehow for the private sector agree on such a mechanism where we can put up, the high level, the 80-20 rule, material factors, and then we can put up and say, okay, these are the items we recognize as transition finance, and the market pulls money into those projects, understanding where the risks are, legal risks, investment risks, greenwashing risks even. Yeah. So I think those are some of the things that I took away from COP as, a advocacy or some kind of discussion topic with our fellow, like banking experts, hopefully those in the room as well, for us to really kind of discuss whether there's any way that the private sector can help to move the needle a bit.
Okay, so thank you, Sharina. So then my next question is for Professor Anthony Cheung. How can we strengthen market credibility and trust in transition finance through effective measurement and verification frameworks?
Thanks, Ophelia. And the question is always tricky because I came right after a sustainable finance banker, and now I'm going to play the bad cop, right? So I think there will be two things. I think we have to realize that on one hand, if we look at the overall, regulatory landscape, right? We have ISSB, right? It's mandatory. It's going to be. I think King and Selena shared at the China Pavilion that Hong Kong is one of the first jurisdictions in the world that we have got mandatory ISSB reporting. On the other hand, some of you may have known, GFANS, right? Manshu is a very good friend of us, and we have established GFANS chapter in Hong Kong. Now, GFANS is going to tell you every framework that's needed for transition, right? TFT and all the framework. Those are best practices, okay? When it is best practices, that means it's voluntary, it's recommended, but nothing to be enforced. So we have one, we have mandatory on one side and the best practice on the other side. There's a gap in between, okay? So we have to realize that the current global landscape, there's still lack of standardized sector-specific benchmarking framework that is gonna act as inhibitors for whether it's for public or finance, like financing or financier or investors to really drive all the transition financing needed. And we need better benchmarks for that. So that is, I think the framework is needed, and that's why some of those frameworks, including the WBA benchmarks, could play a role. The second thing that I would think would definitely enhance credibility would be the importance of taxonomy equivalence. Now, to put it in a layman's word, it's like mutual recognition. So HKMA, for example, draws up the taxonomy for Hong Kong, whilst EU, mainland China, Singapore, like all other jurisdictions, have its own set of taxonomy. I think in order to catalyze this action, we need mutual recognitions, and that would basically raise the credibility, across region for collaboration.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. So my next question is for Alfred Gent. Yes, how can we effectively engage the younger generation and broader community in Hong Kong's climate finance development?
Sure. So thanks. I think the focus of youth is quite important, and also the main thing that I would suggest for youth is really try to provide more opportunities generally for youth. And then by opportunities, I'll give a few examples. So the first, I think, is about engagement also with policymakers. So actually, I also wear a few hats. One hat that I wear is the member on the subcommittee on the Council for Carbon Neutrality and Sustainable Development of the Hong Kong government. And through the subcommittee, what we can do is that we have direct access through the committee with the government in terms of how some of these policies are formulated and as well as communicated to the public, right? Whether it's waste charging, whether it's carbon neutrality, some of those kind of public engagement and how we kind of are able to reflect the voice of youth to the government. I think it's getting much more receptive and there's more room for that. The other type of experience will be more hands-on kind of experiences, whether it's kind of site visits to, let's say, green spaces, recycling facilities, which we do have in Hong Kong, a couple of them. I think this kind of experience is really for people, youth who want to learn about this topic. It will actually have a very positive impact in terms of how they engage with it hands-on. And also through different types of project work. For example, through Carbon Care Inner Lab, the NGO that I'm representing, they do a climate advocacy project for youth. They've run it for around 4 to 5 batches right now, which I think successfully incubated university students, young professionals who are really passionate about this subject to think about, what they can actually do within the environment of Hong Kong to push for this. Another thing is leveraging some of the work that we do at BNP Paribas, which I work as a sustainable investment strategist. So at BNP, what we try to do with a number of universities in Hong Kong as well as around the world is to host some of these case competitions. And I think in recent years, case competitions or projects related to sustainability is actually at the most popular level in history for students. Right? Whenever something sustainability comes up, it actually shows up in kind of people's interest and wanting to learn and explore whether it's carbon markets, whether it's interaction with AI and so on. So I think that is a great opportunity. And finally, one point on social media, which I think is important for kind of communication in general because simply many of us, I think, spend many hours every day, including youth, including LinkedIn, right, which is also social media, on how we kind of read this subject and how we digest it. I think one important thing is try to, I guess, what I'm always trying to think is how do we make this kind of more interesting, more cool, prevent greenwashing, and really the communication side is really what's going to click, I think, with younger generations. So that's my take from this.
Yeah, thank you, Alfred. So Professor Alfred Hoare, as an academia, what capacity building is needed in Hong Kong financial sector to support this development?
Well, first of all, I want to
echo what
Alfred just said.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for us to think beyond the money. I think for the financial sector, I think it's important for us to work together to change the demand, to really do the education. I think we need to change the argument from saying that this is a nice thing to do to if you don't do it, we won't survive. Completely revamp, change the communication and the education piece. And I think that goes back to actually something that the financial sector could help us, maybe force or invite the government to release more data. If I tell you that, for example, 1/3 of Hong Kong will be underwater, if that's the case, guess what? The money will come in. Often then infrastructure will be revamped. If I tell you that the average degree with 45 degrees in the summer, a lot of the electricity infrastructure will be melting away. Often money will come in because we need to rethink how we actually generate electricity and store electricity and also rethink the cable and everything, right? So again, if we don't have information, we don't know the risk, nothing will happen. And so the financial sector actually to some extent is waiting for the government and other sectors to come together to review more data so that they could now talk about market incentives and generation. So I think that's number one, is how do we actually build that capacity. But I think also education-wise, I think it's very important for us. I think going back to organizational level, the macro level, organizational level, definitely I think we as CDU is working for SESCA to actually think about how to train organizational level workers to think about ESG and SDG so that we are more equipped in every single sector to think about climate change issues. Not just the financial sector, not just the education sector. Every single sector need to embrace that as the paradigm.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Professor Alfred Ho. So collaboration is, yes, you have something added.
Yeah, if I may echo what
yes, please.
Dean Alfred has shared. I think one of the key things that's really
collaboration
on the part is that we're actually seeing a lot of educators
yes.
at COP29 from Hong
yes,
Kong.
this time, this year, comparing with last year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of these, educators are actually helping, seeing the importance
yes.
and the strategic
to
priorities
equip our next generations.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's a very innovative project.
Absolutely.
So we'll love to collaborate with academia together with Friends of the Earth. So, so looking ahead to COP30, so what should be Hong Kong prioritize? This question for all panelists. Please share your idea. Next year is a big year, 30. So what we're looking forward, expected, or Hong Kong's positioning?
I can, have a go.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I guess, like in Brazil, it's going to be very interesting. Is in one of the Americas. But, like the biggest player in one of those American countries probably won't be around, or at least not going to take a very important role or part in the total of that agenda. Now, how China as the second largest economy in the world, often criticized for its emission, but often often forgotten for its efforts in fighting climate changes. With that in mind, Hong Kong being the most open part of the country and with hopefully one of the highest degrees of engagement with the rest of the world, Hong Kong can play a role in not only bridging the knowledge gap, but also putting concrete actions into paper, screen, video, social media, whatsoever, just to really highlight that important element of the country. Yeah. So, obviously, I also feel that China being a very important participant, if not leader, in the entity of thing, I guess there will be a lot of rule-setting discussions, like happening from this day onwards. I guess, Hong Kong should, even though we don't have sovereignty as a city, we should, like take note of such discussions and be actively participating in the agenda or the discussions at the peripheral. So, that's my take.
Thanks. So, Alfred?
Sure. Let me make a point maybe on collaboration and really public trust and communication, but because it is, as many panelists have also said, it's not a problem that one single government, one single party, one single place can solve. And so I think I think it's at a point of realization where even within Hong Kong, there are many different groups that we're able to tap, whether it's NGOs, academia, banks, and obviously policymakers who can drive this. So I think the collaboration, the communication, that if we can kind of get that up and allow for that, obviously platforms like this, it's great for this purpose. So I think that would be the main thing.
Thank you. And Professor Alfred? Oh.
I think Hong Kong and also China are doing really well, leading a lot of practices. I think Friends of Earth is definitely helping us a lot locally. I think we need to showcase examples and help especially other developing economies to come and Hong Kong could be indeed a global hub to lead this effort.
Thank you. Serena?
Point that we didn't mention in the panel was somebody asked me how was my COP29 experience. I paused for 2 seconds. People were like, oh, so many people have the same feeling with you. People were not super satisfied with the outcome in COP. I'm sure a couple of us, when asked about our experience, felt the same. Now, I'd like to kind of think about this slightly differently as we think through COP30, because we understand that COP30 is going to be the big COP where people look at the NDC, but every COP brings out a different, not different, but it brings out different angles of, like what decarbonization or what climate change is really like. Last year was gender, this year was health, so we kind of, every year the group got bigger, the awareness got broader, and we've now got youth, the educators, and we've got different advocacy groups in there. So I think that is all helping to move the needle for like climate change. So I do feel like no matter how people felt like is 100 enough, is 300 billion enough, is 1.1 trillion is enough, the number is never enough. It's really about how much money really get in to the climate finance projects. Now, hopefully, as bankers, we would eventually find a way to, like channel that capital. But as we look forward into COP30, I think that will be, one of my biggest things. Of course, get to know where Belém is. Yeah. Because for those of you not interested, it's not happening in Rio de Janeiro. It's happening in Belém. It's one of the cities at the end of the Amazon River. So it's going to be a something for us to learn as well. Now, the other part I wanted to bring, I think, for Hong Kong is case studies. Because we are the international financial center in the Global South, we have the capability. So I do hope that every year we go and we talk about something interesting, right? And next year I'd love to be able to bring a couple really, like good examples from Hong Kong financiers on, like how we enabled accelerated climate finance, and hopefully that will be, some kind of discussion point for people to see Hong Kong's role as well as trigger some good discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Sharina.
I couldn't agree more with Serena, but allow me to expand a little bit in terms of the role of the global transition finance hub for Global South. I mean, if you think about all the major international financial center, right? London, Singapore, New York, Hong Kong. Hong Kong is actually the only international financial center that's situated in Global South. Okay, not any of the others. So Ophelia's question is time bound. We have 11 months left, right, until the next COP. So we got to have some low-hanging fruits. And obviously we talk about taxonomy equivalence and the importance of mutual recognition on taxonomy. If I might add one thing to become a true transition finance hub, right, I think we got to be focused and strategize and prioritize. And when we talk, when what I refer to is to prioritize climate financing. One of the things that I learned at COP29 is that there are existing technologies that would be able to drive the planet to achieve net zero or carbon neutrality by three major technologies: solar, wind, and energy storage. Okay, and these happens to be that China has actually been being a pioneer and leaders in all these three technologies. So I think, well, I got to be very careful to be in front of my CEO, Jeff, because he's an expert on biodiversity. And I'm not saying that TNFD or biodiversity is not important, but if we want to get it right for one single low-hanging fruit in the next 12 months, I would say get this financing for climate solutions right.
Good. So we have a lot of insight, and can you give them a round of applause for my very outstanding panelists? So there are these diverse perspectives on climate finance and the outcomes of COP29 in Baku. The insightful perspectives underscore the importance of collaborations, efforts across financial sectors to speak up climate finance initiatives, paving the way for a more sustainable and resilient future for all. So today's discussions, influenced by the outcomes of COP29, emphasizing the critical role of finance in addressing climate challenges. The conversations at COP29 highlights the urgency of mobilizing financial resources for sustainable solutions and the need for innovative finance instruments to support climate actions. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our panelists and audience of their valuable contribution today. As we reflect on the insightful financial focused dialogue at COP29, Let's use these inspirations to cooperate and bring about real change. Together, let's strive towards a greener and more sustainable world. Each of our commitments is crucial in propelling this mission forwards. Thank you everyone for your invaluable participations and dedications. And I hope today's panel has inspired you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to our moderator and panelists for an engaging and insightful discussion. You may now return to your seats. Professor Zheng, please remain on stage for a special announcement on CESCA.
Thank you. If I may have the slide. So for fellow CESCA alumni, some of you might have already picked that up, but oh, yes, thank you. So from the very latest circular that circulated by our regulator, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, I'm sure you know that our central bank is actually very keen on building capacities for green and sustainable finance. And hence, in the circular out last Thursday, correct me if I'm wrong, they have announced the professional level of the so-called ECF GSF, so the Enhanced Competency Framework. And you could see that they are going to take, so that for practitioners who are working for the authorized institutions, i.e. banks, regulated for HKMA, that there are the core level and professional levels are topics that you might want to attain the knowledge for you to carry out all the regulators' activities. And I would like to share with you that for CESCA holders, we are very glad to receive the confirmations from the Hong Kong Monetary Authority that CESCA is the only qualifications that receive free modulus exemptions. That means that for we have both Module 1 and Module 2 exemptions on the core levels, meaning that for CESCA holders who are working or like in one of the authorized institutions, you would be able to apply for the qualifications that you see from the bottom left-hand corner, the Associate Green Finance Professional, AGFP, Product and Servicing. And at the same time, CESCA is also receiving the Modular 7 exemptions on green and sustainable finance and investment. So that's one of the good news. And the other one, for those of you who have already received the emails from FOS, CESCA have also received the European, the EU standard setter, the EFRAG, which they are going to have the new regulation in place, right, ESRS, from 1st January 2025. CESCA is going to be the first qualifications globally to receive ESRS compliance status, making CESCA the only qualifications on the planet so far to have both Hong Kong and EU regulators exemptions. So good news for fellow alumni. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zheng, for sharing such great news about CESCA. So may we now invite Professor Alfred Ho, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences at City University of Hong Kong, for the closing remarks. Professor Ho, please.
Well, first of all, I think you are the experts on green finance and on climate change issues. So I'm going to actually just maybe put some thoughts together on some of the issues that have been raised during the COP29 and also during our discussion. I learned a lot from all of you, and again, putting into kind of the public policy framework. I think there are three things that we need to work on together. First of all, going back to Amos' presentation, right? From what we don't know to how to know more. Information research is fundamental, right? We need to get more educators, researchers to help us to understand the risk more. That is fundamental. But knowing more is not sufficient. Many of you are also talking about having more capacity. So just now, Anthony talked about CESCA, about competency, professional education, about research capacity, about organizational capacity building, etc. The capacity from getting more data from the government, from our own private sector, from our community to how to get all the data together so that we have more transparency and measure the risk and also have avoid the greenwashing, etc. Having data capacity, having IT capacity, having human capital capacity, having more capacity also is very important. Also the second dimension. But many of you also in the discussion also talk about the willingness to do more. I think educators are doing more, and all of you, Friends of Earth, you are all doing a lot to promote that. I think having us to be willing to actually sacrifice something and do recognize the risk and the necessity to do more is very important. And so I think we have those three dimensions have to come together. I think many of you I know that is in the finance economics field. Let me actually throw a little bit more academics. I argue that we have been brainwashed by economists. Okay, so as a social scientist, we look at political science and sociology. Okay, let me give an example. I argue that all of you have been brainwashed and blindsided by those economists. When you talk about value, right, immediately you think about money. Okay, it's all about money. But let me argue in my formulation, value depends on values. Okay. Think about it. I also use my son example. The other day or a year ago, he said, I'm going to pay $45 US to buy a plastic t-shirt. I said, what on earth? Go to Walmart. It's only $10 US. Get it made in Bangladesh and $10 US. Why are you asking me to buy a $45 plastic t-shirt? Where's the value proposition there, right? So as an economist, said, yeah, there's no way, right? It's not worth that money. Well, then my son said, look at the label by so-and-so, a European brand. Say, the plastic is recycled ocean plastic that they collect, and so that they do something, it's worth that $45 US, Dad. And look at him, say, okay, fine, I will pay that 45, completely ignoring all the economics calculation, right? But that tells you, right, values drive us how to think about value. And that is, I think, the missing piece. When we actually start to argue today about where's the monetary valuation, all this stuff, we need to go back fundamentally about what we value so that we actually will put in the money behind those things. And those are the fundamental questions. And I think in our discussion just now, we also look at this at a very local level, at individual level, how we buy things, how we not buy things, individual decision to our neighborhood, to our city level. But I think some of you also mentioned in our discussion, there is a huge international dimension. The developed economies have the capacity, have the technologies, have everything. But the countries, the people who suffer most is the developing economies. And so how we distribute wealth and capacity to help those who actually really need our help is another dimension that we need to think about. And so I really want to thank Friends of Earth to lead this discussion, to help us think about all this together so that we indeed face the shared future, right? We face a common development path that we want to put our efforts and thoughts together. Thank you again. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Ho. While this marks the end of our main program, we invite you to stay for our networking section. But before we commence networking, let's take another group photo.
Here, please. 3, 2, 1. And here. 3, 2, 1. Thumbs up here. 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And please take this opportunity to connect with our speakers and fellow participants. Have a wonderful evening.